If you're living in central London, you may be wondering where you can take your off-road enduro or dual sport bike. Well, just an hour away down the A3, on the other side of the M25, you come to the Surrey Hills. I'm at Newlands Corner now, which is just at the start of the Surrey Hills, and there's lots of lanes and trails where you can take your off-road bike. Of varying difficulties. Some of them are nothing more than a gravel path, others are pretty muddy and rutted and are pretty difficult. So if you follow me in this video, I'll show you some of the places I go on my Honda CRF 250 Rally. But before you come down, make sure that you gear up. So obviously, other than a good helmet, some really good boots just in case you fall off and your bike lands on you, like it did with me last year. Make sure that you're wearing some pads. They look good and they're cheap. And also some really good gloves. Then buddy up. Bring a pal if you've got one. If not, then have a look on Facebook or join the CRF, and you should be able to go on some guided tours there. It's always good to send them first down anything that looks particularly dangerous. And then finally, when you're on the trails, look up instead of just looking a metre in front of your front wheel. Tends to help with avoiding rocks and logs and branches and things like that. So with that, follow me on this video and I'll show you some of the places that I go to. Cheers. So if you are coming down from town, take a left at the Wisley Junction and head along towards West Horsley. I think it's signposted. This is a really nice road. You're looking out for Green Lane on your right hand side. It's only a small road, by the way. Green Lane short, 1/4 of a mile, you get to the end of that, turn left, and then you're looking out for Green Lane West, and that's when I cut onto their movie footings. This is Long Reach, and in about a 1/4 of a mile you'll come up to Green Lane West on your right hand side. Weather was really nice when I filmed this, end of March. It hadn't rained too much in the previous 4 or 5 days. This is actually the second time that I filmed this. The first time round, I got stuck in a puddle on the right hand side, and it took a while to extricate myself from it. Now, even though it's been dry for the past 4 or 5 days, I was surprised at how wet this little lane was. I speculate it's because these trees keep it in the shade, and so this mud never dries out. Now, if you're new to off-roading, you may wonder, should I be sticking in a rut or should I try and get out of a rut? My advice is to pick one and stay in it. Trying to get out of a rut is a skill that I've not mastered yet. Whenever I try and do it, normally my front wheel catches in an awkward way and I ended up having an unscheduled dismount, normally at an awkward angle, often in a puddle, and it's pretty embarrassing. This is why you should travel with a pal. Get a pal to go through first and adjust your learning and adjust your route depending upon what they do. So as a first lane, if you've come down from town and you've never been on a green lane before, this is quite a tricky one because it's muddy and because it's rutted. The next kind of trails that I go through in part 1 are pretty easy compared to this. So as you come to the end of this little one, give yourself a pat on the back. Nicely done. Hopefully you didn't come off. If you did come off, don't worry about it. I've come off on that one at least twice. And here you come. And the sun's shining and it's dried out. Bravo, well done. You've finished Green Lane West, you come out, turn left, and then it's just a short distance before you turn left again onto Silkmore Lane. Silkmore Lane, 1/2 mile long, takes you into West Horsley. From West Horsley, you're heading south down onto the main road. And when you get to the roundabout by the Colville garage, you're going to turn right that would take you into Guildford if you kept on going along, but you're going to cut off left and go up Blake's Lane and then left again to do the Fuller's Farm loop. So you've just come out of Green Lane. You're probably not even going to get into Forth. Indicate left. Stand up. So stand up on the pegs. If you're new to off-roading, you stand up on the pegs. It lets the bike pivot as it goes over the uneven ground underneath you. Puts you in a more dynamic position to throw your weight around on the bike. Also gives you a few more kind of meters at the horizon that you can look at. And you should be looking where you want to go. So don't look in front of you. Don't do that targeting thing where you see a rock or a branch or something and inevitably you're going to end up hitting it. Thing to notice here is look how dry it is compared to Green Lane West. Less tree cover. Could be that it's on chalk, something like that. As you come up to the North Downs are all chalk. The surface water doesn't tend to stay unless it's in like a particularly muddy bit. But riding on chalk has its own unique peculiarities, which we'll talk about perhaps a little bit later. So as you can see, I don't go particularly fast when I'm on lanes or trails. Some other people absolutely cane it along, but I would be amazed if I'm doing 15, 20. That sounds to me like I'm in third gear, just kind of toodling along. This I think is going slightly uphill from memory. In a moment you come up to the bridge over the railway and then you drop into the tarmac road and there's some houses that turn up on Silkmore Road. You're going to go along there, come to the main road, take a right, that will take you through into West Horsley, and then from there you're going to take a right again. So you're going to come along that main road, and then what we're going to do is go up onto the north face of the North Downs, take a right and then down again. I love that second half of the Fuller's Farm loop, and you'll see why. That's probably one of my favourite little places. At the bottom we take a left onto Blake's Lane, you come out onto the main A246, go along there for a mile, take a left, and then you'll come up to Newlands Corner. And when you get to Newlands Corner, pull in, grab a cup of tea. And we'll stop there at the end of part one. So let's see how this looks. You've come through West Horsley, you're taking a right here at this little roundabout. That's a pumping station over there just in front of you. There's a horse drinking trough here on the left hand side. You're going along here. If any of you are old enough to remember who Freddie Laker was, Freddie Laker used to own the house on the right up here. Some big brown gates. He used to live there back in the day. But what we're going to do is we're going to turn left in about 500 metres to go onto Blake's Lane. Indicate now. This is Blake's Lane. Basically, it runs you through the back of the farm. And so what we're going to do now is turn left and go up a really simple path that takes you kind of up the north face of the North Downs. Now if you look at the ground, see the difference in the colour between that and Green Lane that we did a while ago. And that's because you're on chalk here. And chalk is really nice when it's dry. When chalk is wet, it's like soap, and you need confidence and skill and a bit of experience to do wet chalk. So this is nothing more than a road, okay? It's a bumpy road, nice and easy to do in the dry. I was doing this in the evening. You can tell by the way that the sun's coming in from the west. What you do find along here sometimes is horse riders, but that's a Surrey thing, okay? You should assume that whenever you go around a corner, you're going to find some horse riders. Now, some of the more experienced motorcyclists here that have done trials work, they'll know this road because up at the top there's a trials place. I don't know who owns it. I've never been there, but I can remember when I lived near there, I used to see people with those little trials bikes on the back of them. This cuts onto a tarmac piece just here, and if you are coming up from town, what I'd advise you to do is come to a halt along here and look behind you, and you get a great view of London behind you. You can see the Shard, you can see all the the skyscrapers, you can see Wembley, and then if you were to look off to your left, then you can see Portsmouth as well. So that bit where the trees are there, that's the top of the North Downs. And what we're going to do at the top is we're going to bear right and go along a really nicely graded gravel path. That's where the bike trials thing is. Nice little gravel path here. So, warning, if you do see horses, they're a bit skittish. I always assume with a horse that it's going to turn round and kick me. So I'm incredibly cautious and courteous when it comes down to dealing with horses, because the riders aren't necessarily in control of the horse. And horses are, living, breathing things. If they get spooked, then they get spooked. So we came up, then we turned right. Beautiful house, incredible view, and then you're going to go down, and this has got a different flavour to it than the one that came up. Coming up, it was that tarmac thing, nice path. This has got a slightly different flavour to it. This is one of my favourite parts. It's nice and easy. It's got a great view as you drop down to the A246. Very simple, but again, as I said, you should just assume that as you go around any of these corners, there's going to be a horse or a couple of horses there, especially here because it's a horse riding events place on both sides. So the farm down at the bottom on either side here, this is a horse trails place on either side. Mountain bikers, why not? Walkers as well. I'm always polite and courteous. No point annoying people. And then you drop down here, and we're heading down, and I really like this bit. It turns into tree roots. You can bumble across them or do whatever you want to do. Easy when it's dry, more challenging when it's wet. So if you've ever walked on tree roots in a pair of rubber boots in the wet, then you know what that's like. A bit of speed tends to help, but on this I'm just easing along it. So as you come down to the bottom of this, there's a couple of tight turns, and here's one of them. and then in about another 100 metres there's one to the left, and this brings you down onto Blake's Lane. Again, you're looking for horses, cyclists, walkers as you come through here. And of course, what you could do if you were to turn right, then you'd go along Blake's Lane and you'd come back to that farm. You could turn right again and go and do the loop again, or turn round and go and do it the other way round. This is just a rarely used farm track. No one goes along here except for farm vehicles, postmen, delivery vehicles. It's not well used at all. At the end of this, follow this road round, you come onto the A246, turn left, go along for a mile, left again, and you come up to Newlands Corner, and that's where you're going to stop. How did you get on? Any thrills and spills? Has your bike got some mud on it? Good. Okay, so while you're at Newlands Corner, grab a cup of tea, go and have a look at the other bikes that are normally there, and take a look at the view. When you're ready, we're going to head down Water Lane into Albury, scoot over, we'll do Rise Lane and Pond Lane, and then we'll head to Sheer for another quick break before we do part 3. See you soon.